Radio, 250 plus markets across the United States of America, plus ESPN Radio on Sirius XM Channel 80, plus ESPN Radio simulcast over the live national television airwaves of ESPN News. Number to call up as always is 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. The Stephen A. Smith Show is being brought to you by mycomputercareer.edu. Training for a better life. Time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts. Lots of stuff to get into today. We're rapidly approaching championship weekend, NFC championship, AFC championship game. New Orleans Saints hosting the Los Angeles Rams, the top 2 seed in the NFC conference this year. The Kansas City Chiefs hosting the New England Patriots, top 2 seed in the AFC conference this year. It's going to be real interesting to see what transpires with those folks. No question, we can't wait as we draw closer to this game. It's definitely something special to behold. Patrick Mahomes versus Tom Brady. Drew Brees versus Jared Goff. 2 young guns versus 2 old hands, 2 surefire future Hall of Famers. That's definitely something to get into. I will, as the show progresses today. We've got Brett Okamoto coming on, UFC and MMA analyst extraordinaire. He'll be on with us in hour number 2 to talk about the fight card, UFC 243 this weekend at Barclays Center in Brooklyn. Looking forward to talking to him about that. Of course, I will get into the President of the United States and one of his latest highly questionable moves. I'll definitely touch on that as well. But the first order of business is basketball. It's the first order of business. And I got to tell you something. I'm not happy this afternoon, this morning. I'm just not. I love me some Steph Curry. Steph Curry is the greatest shooter in the history of basketball. Just recently, he surpassed Jason Terry to be number 3 on the all-time list in career three-pointers. Just recently. But if you recall, it only took Steph Curry 655 games to do that. Whereas it took Jason Terry 1,410 games to make 2,282 threes. It only took Steph Curry 655. This man right here only has the great Reggie Miller and the great Ray Allen standing in his way to be the all-time three-point shooting king. And who, with any sense, doubts that he's going to do it? Steph Curry is the greatest shooter in the history of basketball. Better than Reggie Miller, better than Ray Allen, better than Jason Terry as a shooter, better than his own father, Del Curry. Better, better, better. Because all of those guys were guys who caught and shot. Catch and shoot shooters. That's what they were. Not that Reggie Miller couldn't put the ball on the floor one step here or there, or that Ray Allen couldn't do the same. But essentially, catch, fire away. Steph Curry would dance on you. Steph Curry would stand still and spot up. Steph Curry would catch and shoot. Steph Curry's running off of picks to catch and shoot. He'll dribble up the floor and pull up. And let me tell you something right now. The Denver Nuggets, talk about humble pie, humility, slapping you in the face. Last night, a record was set. The Golden State Warriors dropped 10 threes in the first quarter. 10 threes. This is in Denver, mind you. This is in Denver. Poor fans out there, know how cold it gets, know how much snow they accumulate. Got a good team to root for this year because I'm a Jamal Murray fan, let me be clear. Gary Harris, Jamal Murray. I mean, these brothers can play. I'm telling you that right now. Love these guys. But let me tell you something, Golden State's on another level. And I try to tell folks, look, 10 threes, 51 points in the first quarter. Game was over before it started. Game was over before somebody had a chance to pass gas. bam, it's over. This is how elite they are. The elite shot makers that they are. Steph Curry ultimately finished with 31. Klay Thompson finished with 31. Kevin Durant, he just decided to chip in 27. Because that's what he does. But that's not even the biggest point that I wanted to make. Ladies and gentlemen, every time I think about Steph Curry, I think about the Knicks. 2009 NBA draft. The 7th overall pick in the draft by the Golden State Warriors was Steph Curry. The 8th pick was the Knicks. 1 pick shy of being able to have Steph Curry to light up Madison Square Garden. 1 pick. That's it. 1 pick. And it could have been special. And they weren't able to get Steph Curry. Steph Curry. And there's an interesting article on ESPN.com by Kirk Goldsberry. He's an ESPN staff writer. Wrote a very, very interesting article. You know what? And he was highlighting this. There's a difference between threes and deep threes. Deep threes are threes between 30 and 35 feet. Now remember, you're talking 19-9 in the NBA. So 3-pointers, you're talking about 20 feet, 22 feet, 23 feet. No, I said deep threes. Steph Curry, between 30 and 35 feet. The NBA makes 35% of its threes overall and 22% from between 30 and 35 feet. Steph Curry shoots 54% from threes between 30 and 35 feet. 54%. That means more than 1 out of every 2 shots he takes from that distance, he makes. Over the past 4+ years, Curry has made 48% of his threes from 30 to 35 feet. Do you understand what that is? Do you understand how great that is? I mean, this dude is unreal. Unreal. He's that great. He's that great. Steph Curry. And New York Knicks could have had him. Now, credit Golden State, because who's to say the Knicks would have done with him what Golden State did with him in terms of his development? After all, they did pass up on Mark Jackson and hire Mike D'Antoni instead. And the culture of the Golden State Warriors ultimately began, and Steve Kerr fed off of that and took it to another level. And kudos to him. 4 straight NBA Finals appearances, 3 championships in 4 years. The 1 year they didn't win, the NBA granted the Cleveland Cavaliers and LeBron James a stimulus package by suspending Draymond Green for that Game 5. Bogut gets hurt that game. Iguodala gets hurt that game. And even though Iguodala came back, the bottom line is he wasn't 100%. By that time, the Cavs had the momentum, and they ultimately won the championship. That's the only championship they won in the last 4 years. But when you look at it and you see it for what it is, Steph Curry is absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. 52% of his threes come from the left wing. 47% comes from beyond the top of the key. Another 35% comes from the right wing. But his favorite spots, according to this chart in this article, Steph Curry's favorite spots is left corner, left wing, right corner. He shoots better than 50% on all of those. He's just great. And I just don't see anybody messing with the Warriors. They just can amp it up. DeMarcus Cousins eventually is coming. Who knows what he's going to do? He's not going to average 28 and 12 like he did when he was the number one option. But this dude can shoot, too. You got to remember, DeMarcus Cousins can shoot. I mean, it almost seems unfair. I know we're seeing heroics from James Harden. And you got to wonder what the hell's going to happen with Chris Paul. Because he refused to take anything less than the maximum 160 allowable to him, took every dime, wouldn't take $2 million per year less. As a result, they couldn't keep Trevor Ariza. I don't see Houston making that noise because regardless of the greatness of James Harden, who's been averaging 40 over the last 17 games, including 17 consecutive games, scoring at least 30, I'm just of the mindset that he's going to wear down. He's only human. You got to give him some help. And he doesn't have it. Clint Capella's going to be out. Eric Gordon's been out. They'll come back. But CP3, one with some odds, is coming back. Even though I don't know if he'll ever be healthy again. I think Houston's window was last season. And they missed it. Denver has a window coming. I believe in this team. Just not this year. I believe in the Denver Nuggets and their future. Just not this year. I don't think they're going to do it this year. Sad part is we're not even talking about the Knicks. And I want to say this, and I want to say this one last time. To Sean Marks, to Atkinson for the Brooklyn Nets. Ladies and gentlemen, I love Steve Mills. Known him for many years. Scott Perry for many years. I got a lot of faith in what the Knicks ultimately will do if they stay at the helm. But I got to give credit where credit is due. I cannot say enough about what the Brooklyn Nets are doing. I cannot say enough about what the Brooklyn Nets are doing. It's fantastic. I don't give a damn about them being a game of 2 under 500. That means nothing to me. You go against the Brooklyn Nets, you are going to be in a dogfight. I want to give props to D'Angelo Russell because we all know what kind of mess he got himself in by stupidly exposing Swaggy P when he was involved with Iggy Azalea. That brother needed to be moved out to L.A. All of us said it. He has come to Brooklyn. He has been balling. This kid, Allen, will block anything. He'll block a burger if you throw it in his face. He don't give a damn. He's trying to swat everything. Dinwiddie can ball. I like him a lot. I love what I'm seeing from the Brooklyn Nets. I'm sorry. I'm a lifelong Knicks fan. Native New Yorker. Born in the Bronx, raised in Hollis, Queens, New York City, all my life. I wasn't sitting there looking for the Brooklyn Nets. But I'll be damned if I rob them of credit. I am incredibly impressed with what I am seeing from the Brooklyn Nets. This was a team that was supposed to stink every bit as much as the Knicks until this summer's free agency, where you got cap space, not just for one, but maybe two marquee dudes. And everybody been talking about the Knicks, because the Knicks supposed to have $38 million in cap space. Let me tell you something. Do not be surprised if a marquee dude decides to go to Brooklyn. They're building something there. They're building something there. The hell with the rest of the NBA. The Knicks got a problem right here in New York with the Brooklyn Nets. Sean Marks and Atkinson, they're doing a hell of a job. They're doing a hell of a job. And, you know, we talk about trees all the time, Nuno and Jonna. We talk about trees all the time. The Belichick tree, and then coaches go someplace, and what kind of sorry job they do. Let me tell y'all something right now. Greg Popovich in San Antonio is great and iconic of a figure as he is just a flat-out winner. And by the way, a good man. I don't give a damn how acerbic his interviews are to reporters on the sideline. He told y'all from Jump Street he hated the idea of the NBA allowing broadcast networks to bother them during games. What the hell do you expect from him? He don't like it. And I don't blame him. I'm a reporter, and I wouldn't want to bother Greg Popovich during the game. Halftime is one thing, but during the game, I don't blame him for not liking that. But having said that, because I digress, let me tell you something right now. As far as I'm concerned, are you ready for this, Nuno? Belichick don't have no damn tree. He might have some leaves, but he don't have no tree. Josh McDaniels, Romeo Crennel, Bill O'Brien. Who? And I'm not saying these people don't know football. Charlie Weiss works at Sirius XM. I love that man. I've known him for years. But he has some struggles, and we know that. Romeo Crennel, damn good defensive coordinator. But as a head coach, he has some troubles. Josh McDaniels, we know what happened in Denver. You reneged on your decision to take the Indianapolis coach job. I mean, the tree of Bill Belichick ain't that great. You can't say the same about Greg Popovich. Have you seen his tentacles? I mean, is there a better coach in the NBA definitively at this moment than Mike Budenholzer? Is there somebody definitively that you can pick? He's an outstanding coach. Outstanding. I was in Philadelphia last night watching the 76ers, and we all know that I got on Brett Brown because of his performance those first 3 games against Boston in the second round of the playoffs. Let me tell you this, Brett Brown can coach. And I'll tell you something else. He's a good man. He's a good man. And even though I think people made entirely too big of a deal of it when Jimmy Butler, being his candid self, felt the need to speak out about some things with Brett Brown, let me say this. Since Brett Brown has had Joel Embiid healthy, since Brett Brown has had Ben Simmons, and now that he has Jimmy Butler, it's not like the Sixers stink. They're the 4th seed in the Eastern Conference. It's 15 games over 500. Brett Brown was in the playoffs last year. He knows a thing or two about the game of basketball, comes from that Popovich tree, and I'm going to repeat, he's a good man. I don't root against him. I like Brett Brown. Just because I got to call it like I see it from game to game doesn't mean I'm rooting against you. I like Brett Brown. I like him a lot. But this dude, Sean Marks, another Popovich tree, right, Nuno? Let me tell y'all something. New York Knicks got reasons for concern. He's doing an outstanding job. There's just no other way around it. You got to deserve credit. Brooklyn Nets. I need to apologize, Nuno. I need to apologize. Because, I've been traveling all over the country. I was at Philly last night. Of course, I get to my share of Laker games. I haven't thought about seeing the Knicks because, listen, this season stinks. We all know that. Porzingis is not healthy. Kevin Knox is coming on strong. I like what I'm seeing. I like the fact that they drafted him. All right, this kid Tria that they found. See, that's got Scott Perry's fingerprints written all over it because he finds talent. Now we got to hope Porzingis comes back healthy sooner than later so he can showcase what he can do. And that way, the New York Knicks can be a player in free agency because you got no chance of getting somebody to come to the Knicks if they don't know that Porzingis is going to be healthy and ready to go. But having said that, let me be very clear. Not only do I owe the Nets an apology for not mentioning them enough, damn it, I got to go to the UFC event this Saturday night. I should have been at the Barclays Center long before that because these Brooklyn Nets are worth watching. I'm telling you right now. Got to pay attention. I mean, we're looking at the Clippers without CP3, without Blake Griffin anymore. Lob City, gone. DeAndre Jordan. Clippers been playing well. We expected more from the Lakers with LeBron, but even before he got hurt, the Clippers were looking pretty damn good. So we in New York, we're in LA, and the secondary stepsister franchises in those 2 respective cities are the ones making noise and doing damage. Clippers having a better season than any of us expected. Am I lying? Nets are having a better season than anybody expected. And guess what? You got marquee free agents like Kawhi Leonard and Kevin Durant that are giving people, at least quietly, every every impression. They'd consider those franchises more than they'd consider the marquees, like the Lakers. Or the bigger brand, like the Knicks. Meaning bigger than the Nets, not the Lakers. I mean, that's what's going on right now. And that's what makes this NBA season so fantastic. Yes, the Warriors are the creme de la creme. Yes, they're the class. Yes, they have the greatest shooter in the world. Yes, they have one of the top 4 players on the planet in Kevin Durant. Yes, they have 2 of the top 5 shooters in the history of basketball in both Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. But look at the storylines circulating throughout the NBA. It gives you cause to pause. It gives you cause to pause. I got to give Doc Rivers credit. I got to give Steve Ballmer and Lawrence Frank credit. Because Doc Rivers is coaching his butt off and reminding people he knows a thing or two about this game. The Lakers, I'm concerned because LeBron James has been out too long. This is the most serious injury he's had in his career. And it happens to be his first year with the Lakers. Not year 2 or 3, now. If I'm a marquee free agent and I'm trying to go to L.A., now obviously you got the brand, you got the sunshine, Southern California, et cetera, but I also would like to know that LeBron James is going to be ready to go. You got a groin injury. You and Chris Paul with your groin injuries now. And I don't mean to put LeBron in that same sentence because Chris Paul, God bless him, great point guard, has been perpetually injured throughout his career. In the case of LeBron, this is an aberration. This man is just a shot to see him having to sit out because he's in such phenomenal condition. But the fact that he's missing games now, he's on course to miss 13, 14 games. That's a concern. New York Knicks, look, damn it, just lose every game so you can get Zion Williamson. That's my philosophy. But in the case of the Brooklyn Nets, I mean, I'm shocked at how impressive they've been. I can't say enough about what they're doing. And I want to personally apologize to the Brooklyn Nets for sleeping on them. I am wide awake now. I'm watching. These brothers compete and they go after it. They ain't scared of nobody. Only problem I got with the Brooklyn Nets right now is the traffic on Atlantic Avenue. Nothing else. They got about 9 subway lines coming through there. But I can't take the subway anymore. I'm Stephen A., you know. Life has done changed for me. People ain't going to let me take the subway peacefully. But they are worth going to see. Very, very interesting. Houston, I mentioned them. Denver, I mentioned them. But Golden State is something special to behold, man. No doubt about it. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. I'm just getting started because I gotta get into the President of the United States in a minute. I got a few things that I need to say about him in light of what transpired at the White House this week. I'll explain to you what exactly I'm talking about and more in just a minute. You're listening live to Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN News. That was Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. By the way, Peloton's a game-changing indoor cycling bike that brings the energy of live studio classes right to your home anytime you want. Winter or summer, rain or shine. Whether it's a monthly challenge to meet your goals, a training program for your next race, or setting a new personal best, the Peloton bike will make you want to show up and keep climbing the live leaderboard year-round. On average, Peloton members are riding their bikes more every year and crushing their personal records along the way. So learn more about the Peloton bike at onepeloton.com or visit your local showroom. Stick around, don't touch that dial. It's Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News.
Craving even more of Stephen A.? People. For around-the-clock access to the man,
I'm Stephen A.
You can follow him on Twitter and Instagram at Stephen A. Smith and on Facebook at Stephen A.
You can sit up there and say Dak Prescott didn't have the most stellar game. You can do that. You can point to Ezekiel Elliott rushing for just 47 yards and 20 carries. You can point to the coaching. Because Jason Garrett, in concert with Scott Linehan, ultimately studied their own calls. And the Los Angeles Rams knew exactly what the Cowboys were going to do and when they were going to do it. And as a result, that made them incredibly transparent, which closed the gaps for Ezekiel Elliott to run the football, and as a result, you got what you got. We could go that route. We could do that. We could do that. But here's what I would ask you to see. I would ask you to notice C.J. Anderson rushing for 123 yards and 23 carries. I would ask you to notice Todd Gurley rushing for 115 yards on 16 carries. I would ask you to notice that the two combined for 3 touchdowns. Anderson with 2, Gurley with 1. I would ask you to look at all of those things. And then I would ask you to say this. Tell me that the Dallas Cowboys didn't get punched in the face. That's what this came down to. We can slice it any way we want to. But the Dallas Cowboys got manhandled at the line of scrimmage. And Ndamukong Suh was manhandling the offensive line. No matter what way you slice it. And Whitworth and his crew on the offensive line for the Los Angeles Rams was manhandling the Dallas Cowboys defensive line. Jared Goff was sitting back there. He barely had to put in a day's work. The Los Angeles Rams rushed the football 48 times Saturday night and threw the ball 28 times. One article was comparing the 32-year-old Sean McVay, the youngest head coach in the NFL, to the old coach Chuck Knox from the 70s, because that's the strategy they reverted back to. We're going to run it right down Dallas's throat, and we're going to dare them to do something about it. That is what happened.
The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and you can always get in touch with the show through the 1-800-Flowers Twitter feed.
Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, presented by Progressive Insurance, making it easy to bundle your home and car insurance. Plus, the NBA is on ESPN Radio. Tune in tonight as Kawhi Leonard and the Toronto Raptors visit the Boston Celtics. Presented by Indeed. Coverage begins at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on most ESPN radio stations. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. We'll get to your phone calls in just a second. Wanted to transition into something here. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a sports network. And to be quite honest with you, I don't need the president of the company to remind me that our focus should be on sports, not politics. I'm certainly not an aficionado on it. And those who are an aficionado on it have chosen this place to be their place of employment, as opposed to a network like CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, or other political outlets. And so I'm not about to engage into the politics of things or anything like that when I talk about the president of the United States. I'm going to stay in my lane simply because I'm not an aficionado. I'm an observer, but far from an aficionado, as I've repeatedly stated on many, many occasions. I listen to both sides. I love the Black Eagle with Joe Madison in the morning on Sirius XM. Urban View Channel 126. Karen Hunter, who's on in the afternoon from 3 to 6 p.m. every weekday on the same channel, is not just a sister in terms of being a black woman who's outstanding at what she does, who's incredibly accomplished at what she does, Pulitzer Prize winner, best-selling author and beyond. But she's also like a sister to me. We go back more than 26 years. And I love her dearly. She does an outstanding job. But believe it or not, I also listen to Sean Hannity, who I've known for years. I've listened to Mark Levin, the great one. That's his nickname. And he is phenomenal at what he does. So I encourage people to listen to everybody. You want your politics fixed? Go there. That's what I would tell you. And by the way, regardless of what you feel about the spin that they put on things for the purposes of entertainment and to some degree being informative and what have you, all the outlets, Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, they're all doing their job. So I'm certainly not casting any aspersions on anybody. What I would tell you is this, though. The Clemson Tigers, to ramrod the Alabama Crimson Tide the way that they did, to leave Nick Saban on the sideline completely and totally befuddled, confused, and ultimately helpless. For Dabo Swinney, the great Dabo Swinney, who was a guest on this show last week, who's done an outstanding job and who's in the conversation as the greatest coach in college football at this particular juncture, since his team, like Nick Saban's team, is 55-4 over the last 4 years, has been to the postseason, college football players each time, has won 2 national championships, just like Alabama. Dabo Swinney has built an absolutely marvelous program at Clemson. He's an outstanding coach. He's an exceptional recruiter. He's a phenomenal leader of young men. And he's a winner and a good man. He deserved better. His program deserved better from our president. Now, there's going to be the ignorant of you amongst you out there, and I'm going to call you that. Who's going to sit up there and say, he's not our president. He's the president of the United States. Even if you feel he doesn't respect the office, you still should respect the office and operate accordingly. He's the president of the United States, whether you like it or not. All the other nations in the world have to respect the fact that he's the president of the United States. So how the hell are we not going to? Until he's gone, he's the president. And I will address him as such. Dabo Swinney and the Clemson Tigers football program deserved better. To have them show up and you serving fast food with McDonald's and Wendy's and all of this other stuff, you could do better than that. And to have Sarah Sanders, I believe she's the daughter of former governor of Arkansas, Huckabee, press secretary, sitting there talking about how, because of the debate, the ongoing refusal by the Democratic Party to negotiate security at the border and all. Come on. I agree with my man Max Kellerman and what he said on First Take this morning when he said, let's not divert our attention away from the issues. We know there's a bigger issue going on. I'm thinking about the government shutdown. He's thinking about the Russia investigation, whatever. I'm not here for that. What I would tell you is that champions in the United States of America religiously get treated better than that. And the fact that our president would conduct himself in that fashion is incredibly, incredibly disheartening. There's no other way to slice it. That's how I feel about it. And I just think it's a damn shame that we find ourselves even having to have this discussion. Reggie Bush, former Heisman Trophy winner. If you remember, he won the Heisman Trophy in 2005 as a star running back at USC, won a national championship as well, if I remember correctly. But he had to forfeit that Heisman Trophy due to allegations that he received improper benefits. It also led to a 2-year postseason ban by USC from the NCAA and the program's national championship in 2004 having to be vacated. He felt the need to go on Twitter because obviously he's been at the White House. And when George W. Bush was president, and he said, quote, just when you think you've seen it all, Clemson football, you guys deserve better. You are world champions, and this is the honor you receive from our nation's leader. This is disrespectful on so many levels, just a slap in the face after that kind of performance. SMH, shaking my head. President Trump at the time said, great being with the national champions Clemson Tigers last night at the White House. Because of the shutdown, I served them massive amounts of fast food. I paid, parentheses, over 1,000 hamburgers, etc. Within 1 hour, it was all gone. Great guys and big eaters. Guys like Michael Strahan and others have offered, a better meal to be served to these guys. You're the president of the United States. It was just classless. And that sometimes people relations and knowing how to treat people and according yourself with the level of respect that you should display, it would be nice. It would be nice. So it's just unfortunate that our president decided to do that and then to use the government shutdown as an excuse for doing it. So basically you're using a government shutdown as a means to send a message and using the players and the Clemson Tigers football program as a prop to send your message. Have you no shame? Couldn't you just honor them and show them the deference and respect that they deserved as champions? It's just emblematic of a bigger problem. It's not the end of the world. They'll be fine. We'll all be fine. It's just sad to see the president of the United States, the leader of the free world, so willing to use every means at his disposal to send messages at the expense of so many other people. It's really unfortunate. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. We'll be back with more on the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, which, by the way, is presented by Progressive Insurance. Cars, homes, boats, motorcycles, RVs, and more at Progressive.com. Plus, if you missed my opening segment today, don't worry. You can listen to the podcast on your schedule, on demand. Brought to you by the new Capital One Saver Card. Earn 4% cash back on dining and entertainment, 2% at grocery stores, and 1% on all other purchases. Hey, what's in your wallet? More of the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio and ESPN News in a minute.
Craving even more of Stephen A?
Him of all people.
For around-the-clock access to the man?
I'm Stephen A.
You can follow him on Twitter and Instagram at Stephen A. Smith and on Facebook at Stephen A.
I'm going to say something, Stephen A., and, you know, it's kind of off the subject. I hope you let me do it for a second.
Sure, absolutely.
Many people are pointing to the lack of minority head coaching hires.
I would be at the front of the line with that.
And
I'd be at the front of the line.
And so many people want to blame it on race and blatant racism. Here's what I'll say about it, and I tweeted about it. Mm-hmm. This is so historic, right? Because now they're putting it on, they want to hire the quarterback guy or the guy that works with quarterback. How many black quarterback coaches are there in the league?
I have no idea.
So I'm saying, how many black offensive line coaches or minority coaches? And so what's happening is, if this is going to be the pipeline to head coaching, if being an offensive coordinator, being a quarterback guy is going to be that pipeline, how are we, the Rooney Rule might as well not even be in effect because we're not getting those guys even hired on the lower level offensively.
So you agree with me in terms of
I 100% agree with you. And I think I also think it's a deeper conversation than just head coaches. Mm-hmm. Right?
Well, take it there, Ryan. You know, you take it there. I'm listening.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
So you look at, let's go through historically, right? So if we're going to hire the quarterback guy, historically, it was always questioned, could African Americans or could minorities play the quarterback position based on intelligence, right? And so now you don't have that direct correlation between those guys becoming quarterback coaches, right? So they don't get to be offensive coordinators. They never get to be considered offensive geniuses. And so now when this coaching cycle comes around, that's all they're looking for. LaFleur, you can have the 27th ranked offense, right? With Marcus Mariota in Tennessee.
That's right.
And get a head coaching job.
Right.
How?
Kingsbury. You
can lose your job at Texas Tech.
At Texas Tech, get a job at USC. Don't even have a moment to go to Roscoe's for chicken and waffles and get a head coaching job.
And so to me, I think we have to take a deeper look. The NFL has to take a deeper look into the hiring of minority coaches, not just at the head coaching level, but throughout the building. Because what you see what's happening is, right, you're hired to coach wide receivers. You're hired to coach defensive backs. You hired to coach linebackers. One, because you play those positions. Two, because the people in the room, they want you to be able to deal with them.
The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and you can always get in touch with the show through the 1-800-Flowers Twitter feed.
ESPN Radio, the Stephen A. Smith Show. We're coming to you live from the Seaport District at Pier 17, brought to you by Chase. Plus, with the Vivid Seats app, it's easy to find awesome seats to any game. Download the app and enter promo code CHAMPS at checkout to get 10% off your first order. 50 minutes past hour number 1. Brett Okamoto for the UFC will be coming on the show with us in hour number 2, so looking forward to that conversation. But also got some news for you. Jalen Hurts, quarterback for Alabama, who had his job taken away from him by Tua Tagovailoa, but ultimately came in against Georgia and did his thing. This guy decided to transfer. Jalen Hurts of Alabama is going to Oklahoma. He's going to succeed Baker Mayfield. He's going to succeed Kyler Murray. Ladies and gentlemen, let me be the first to say, I don't think that's the greatest move. Jalen Hurts is a phenomenal athlete. I can't commend him enough for the job he did against Georgia. He is no scrub. He's an athlete. He's a competitor. He can play. But in terms of actually throwing the football, I think he's challenged. And if you are accustomed to Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray, I think there's going to be a drop-off in terms of passing ability once Jalen Hurts arrives. That's just me. But good luck to the brother. I'm certainly not rooting against him. Let's go to the phones. Chris, you're live with Stephen A. Go ahead, Chris.
Hey, Stephen A. Happy New Year and all. I know I haven't spoken to you in a while, but real quick, give me your opinion on what you think about this proposed trade. As good as I think Milwaukee has been, I think they're a piece away. So I think they need to figure out a way to get their hands on a Chris Paul and figure out maybe give up a Chris Middleton and maybe
Chris Paul's not going to Milwaukee. Chris Paul's not going to Milwaukee.
I'm sorry?
He's not going to go to Milwaukee. Chris Paul signed on to be with Houston. I don't think they could move him, and I don't think they'd want to because I don't think right now anybody trusts Chris Paul's health with that huge contract he has.
But do you believe Milwaukee, the way they're constructed now, do you think they have enough? Is it good as they
I don't think they have enough. I think they need more consistent perimeter shooting. I tell you what else they need. They need the Greek Freak to shoot better from the perimeter. He's unstoppable going to the post. He's incredibly athletic, lethal in the open court, can get to the hole almost at will, it seems, during the regular season, but the playoffs are a different animal. And to me, if the Greek Freak doesn't develop a better perimeter shot, Milwaukee's going to end up being out in the semifinals or definitely, listen, they ain't getting to the finals. I can tell you that.
Right, but they also don't have a floor general or a leader, Stephen. They need somebody to grow and help.
Well, I like Eric Bledsoe a lot, and I trust Budenholzer. Brogdon is no joke as well, but I just think that right now, more so than components that you need to add, the biggest thing they need in Milwaukee is for the Greek Freak to develop a jump shot. I think the Greek Freak and Ben Simmons are two guys that if they developed a jump shot, it would be frightening. It would be frightening what they could do and what their respective teams in Milwaukee and Philadelphia would be able to do if those two dudes developed a jump shot.
I agree, but think about the pressure Ben has. Ben is not, or Gianna has, I'm sorry. He's asked to do so much. Ben, with two superstars he's playing along with Jimmy and Joel, it doesn't have that much pressure.
Doesn't matter because Milwaukee plays better defense. The Greek Freak is more lethal athletically and more formidable. That's why Shaq said he's going to call him Superman from now on. And I think that, I'm sorry, something else was in my ear. Something jumped in my ear, so I apologize, ladies and gentlemen. But listen, I just think that it's one of those situations where the Greek Freak, it is what it is. Anyway, we got some technical difficulties. We'll be out. Be back in a minute. News here where I love to be every weekday. Sirius XM Channel 80, ESPN News. Simulcast live over national television airways of ESPN News Plus, 250 plus markets across the United States of America. Number to call up as always is 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. Let me get right into it. Also, want to remind you, Brett Okamoto, reporter and analyst extraordinaire for ESPN on all things MMA. He'll be on the line with us in approximately 30 minutes or so. So looking forward to talking to him about this UFC card coming up this Saturday night at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York. Definitely looking forward to having that kind of conversation. By the way, the Stephen A. Smith Show is being brought to you by Pennzoil Synthetics, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. So make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. I'll get to the phones. We're back to the phones in just a few minutes, but not before I get into these playoffs. I'm getting more and more and more excited about it. But there's a couple of other things before I get to the playoffs, actually, that's on my mind. Number one, You know, Bruce Arians, new coach for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, by the way, brought in Byron Leftwich as his offensive coordinator. That makes only 2 black offensive coordinators in the entire National Football League, by the way. But he spoke about Antonio Brown. And Nuno, do we have that sound with him talking about the Steelers' stellar wide receiver, Antonio Brown, a player he used to coach as offensive coordinator with the Pittsburgh Steelers a few years back before Mike Tomlin decided to go in a different direction. Listen to Bruce Arians and what he has to say about Antonio Brown and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Take it away, y'all.
What is your assessment of what's going on there with your experience with Antonio and the Steelers from afar?
From afar, it's just too much miscommunication, too much diva. I just don't. I've heard so many stories, and I like Antonio. He plays as hard as anybody on Sunday, and he practices hard. They just got to make better decisions off the field. Be on time, do some of those little things.
Was that the Antonio that you knew and drafted back in 2011 or whatever year it was?
He was hardest working. He and Emmanuel Sanders, boy, they went after it because Mike Tomlin used to always tell them 2 dogs, 1 bone. At that time, we had Mike Wallace, Hines Ward, and we had a pretty good room for one of them to get on the field. And by the end of the season, they were both winning for us to go to the Super Bowl.
That was Bruce Arians, former offensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers, head coach for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, recently hired head coach for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, somebody who's universally respected throughout NFL circles, no question about that. I have no problem with Bruce Arians specifically saying what he said. First of all, he's qualified. Secondly, strong level of credibility, and he doesn't just throw statements out there. That's number one. Number two, he coached the man, so he would know. Number three, that is really, really not my biggest issue. What my biggest issue is in regards to Antonio Brown, I'm getting sick and tired of everybody talking about Antonio Brown without bringing up Big Ben Roethlisberger. Big Ben Roethlisberger goes on his weekly talk show on the radio, and dare I say, listen, I'm not going to say that. Let me be very, very careful. I'm not going to say that Big Ben Roethlisberger is lying or that he's dishonest or anything like that. I guess he's just a pro at keeping things in-house that should be in-house, at least the things he wants to keep in-house. But clearly there are other things that's not the case. Antonio Brown this past season did not like Big Ben Roethlisberger. I'm telling you what I know. He didn't like him. Didn't appreciate how Big Ben Roethlisberger came at him. Didn't appreciate how Big Ben Roethlisberger called people out in public. Didn't appreciate Big Ben Roethlisberger against the Denver Broncos talking about how they should have won at Juju Smith-Schuster all 4 times. He's Antonio Brown. 6 consecutive years, a minimum of 101 receptions. 6 consecutive years, a minimum of 1,284 yards receiving. This brother's on another level. I totally agree with my man Michael Irvin, the playmaker on the NFL Network this weekend, when he sat up there and said, I got a problem personally when you see the paucity of black coaches that have gotten hired. That you got a black man in there, Mike Tomlin, who's won 65% of his games, who's a Super Bowl champion, who's been to 2 Super Bowls, who's been to the postseason numerous times, that you would be disrespectful to him in terms of not showing up on time, ready to work and handle your business. I totally get that. I totally side with Michael Irvin on that front. But it's amazing to me how everybody's talking about Antonio Brown and they ain't talking about Big Ben Roethlisberger. Why is that? Big Ben Roethlisberger, forget Stephen A. As great as I am, and I ain't gonna lie, I'm kind of great. I didn't play football. I never dreamed of playing football. I didn't want to get hit. Hell no. I didn't want any parts of that. Listen to the football analysts. Turn the channel. ESPN is where it's at. Ain't the only place. Fox is there. CBS is there. NBC is there. NFL Network is there. They all talk NFL. Find me one football analyst who's never, ever never, ever acknowledged Big Ben Roethlisberger doesn't exactly handle things in the most professional of fashions when it comes to his mouth and talking about his teammates. Everybody knows that. Is it possible, ladies and gentlemen? Antonio Brown tired of that, brother. Is it possible that Antonio Brown feels screwed over by Big Ben Roethlisberger? Is it possible that Antonio Brown don't want to leave Pittsburgh? He just don't want to play with Ben. Is that possible? And if it is possible, which everyone must concede, is he far off? I mean, Ben Roethlisberger is going to the Hall of Fame. He's pretty damn good. He's no Aaron Rodgers. He's no Tom Brady. He's no Drew Brees. Hell, right now he ain't Patrick Mahomes. Ain't Andrew Luck. One could argue he ain't even Deshaun Watson. I wouldn't go that far, but one could argue. Something to be said about all of that. Todd Haley's gone. That had everything to do with Big Ben Roethlisberger. You got what you wanted. You got the personnel you wanted. You got the coach you wanted. You got the system you wanted. But nobody benches Big Ben when it comes to Antonio Brown. Why is that? Inquiring minds want to know. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. That's one item I wanted to get into. The other item I wanted to get into was Cam Newton. Now, David Tepper, owner for the Carolina Panthers, basically alluded to Cam Newton maybe, possibly having to sit out the next season just so they could prioritize getting him 100% healthy. I love Cam Newton. Cam Newton is a star athlete, stud athlete. But one could argue Cam Newton ain't really learned how to throw the football until this season when Norv Turner was his offensive coordinator because he's completed 67% of his passes this year, whereas throughout his first 7 years in the National Football League, he never completed better than 60% of his passes, and even that was only one time at 60%. So I'm not talking about moving on from Cam Newton in terms of, oh, my Lord, he's finished, he's done, et cetera, et cetera. I'm talking about a plan B. You know, it was Cam Newton that wanted to run the football. When he got popped by T.J. Watt on November 8th, I believe, it was against Pittsburgh. All right? And he got hit in that shoulder. It wasn't the same sense. And the Panthers were 6-2 at that time. When all of those things happened to Cam Newton, we saw that. But it was Cam Newton that insisted on running the football. It was Cam Newton that didn't want to take the cape off of Superman. It was Cam Newton that had a problem with Coach Ron Rivera for wanting to streamline and dissipate those running plays for his star quarterback. It was Cam Newton who fought that. So this is the way you want to play. But the reality is that one could argue that Cam Newton just isn't a great pocket passer. He never has been throughout his career. Why ignore it? 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. And by the way, you know what? Next year, I mean, think about the quarterbacks that are going to be mentioned. Nick Foles. You don't want him because he's getting a long-term deal. He's going to have his pick of the litter. I'd say he should go to Jacksonville. He should consider it. You got Teddy Bridgewater. You got Joe Flacco. In terms of one-year deals, go out and get Ryan Fitzpatrick. Ryan Fitzpatrick could go into Carolina for the year and do damage until Cam Newton gets back. Why not? He was looking pretty damn good until Cutter decided to put in Jameis Winston. Worth consideration. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. I can't wait for these games this weekend. Kansas City, New England. I think Damian Williams is going to be a key factor. Him against Sony Michel. You kill whoever runs the football most effectively has the better chance to win. Because Patrick Mahomes is going to do his thing and Brady's going to do his. On the NFC side, and Ndamukong Suh to me is the key. So again, I said Damian Williams for the Chiefs, Sony Michel for the Patriots. For the Rams, the key is Ndamukong Suh and helping to apply pressure up that middle. So Drew Brees has to throw over opposing offensive or rather defensive linemen who's going to impede his vision to some degree. I think that's important. And I think the key player for the New Orleans Saints is either Mark Ingram or Traquan Smith. Somebody got to get off. Somebody got to get off. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. To the phones we go. Let's go to Quay. You're live with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio, ESPN News. What's up?
Hey, Stephen A, man. I wanted to say thank you for taking my call, man.
No problem.
I was interested. I'm a big Warriors fan, so KD is talking about leaving. Do you think your New York Knicks could land KD, or who do you think would be?
Well, they think they can. I'm being told that it's all a smokescreen, that KD don't have no intentions of coming to the New York Knicks. I'm told that, his people are just doing what they're doing and giving the Knicks the impression, but that's not who's going to end up with. That's not where he's going to end up. He'll either stay in Golden State or go to L.A., and if he goes to L.A., the Clippers have a better shot than the Lakers. That's what I've been told.
Do you think he'll stay in Golden State by any chance?
I think that might be the way for him to go. Why leave?
Why leave? You're right.
Why leave? Unless he's got something to prove, and we don't know that yet.
Yeah. Do you think he could carry the team by himself to the NBA Finals and actually win?
No, that's not KD's game. I think that KD is a superstar player. Offensively, one of the most efficient superstars we've ever seen, but I don't think he's the kind of person that wants to go. He wants to be that number one option where, he's jacking up shots, 30, 35 shots a game and stuff like that. That's not who he is. KD likes to fit in. He likes basketball being played the right way, and he likes to succeed in that fashion. I think he's got something to prove, which is why he's considering leaving Golden State. But nevertheless, I still think it's one of those situations where he's better off with another superstar, but a superstar who knows how to let the game come to them, not one of those guys fighting for alpha male status.
Gotcha. Now, with my New England Patriots, I do believe that they'll win this weekend. What percentage are you giving on the win this weekend?
50-50. It's Tom Brady. Rob Gronkowski looked healthy enough. Julian Edelman balled out last week although it was against a transparent Los Angeles Chargers defense. I mean, 7 DBs, Bosa and Ingram can't get to the quarterback. Tom Brady standing back in the pocket, taking pictures, calling Giselle to tell her he loves her, asking about the kids and all of this other stuff while standing in the pocket waiting to throw a pass. I mean, that's a problem. But I watched D Ford and Justin Houston and those boys get at Andrew Luck. And if they get at Tom Brady, plus can run the football with Damian Williams, Kansas City's going to the Super Bowl.
No, Super Bowl talk. Super Bowl, y'all. It's also in my city. Will be
all right.
Georgia.
I got you. I don't need all that, bro. Plus, you got to learn to turn down your radio when you're on the phone with me. Have a nice day. I'll talk to you later. I appreciate the call. Let's go to Ramsey. You're live with Stephen A. Talk to me, Ramsey. What's going on?
Good morning or good afternoon, Stephen A. Just wanted to call in and extend you an invitation to come see another exciting basketball team 90 miles east of Oakland up here in Sacramento.
You talking about the Sacramento Kings?
Yes, sir.
Yes. 2 games over 500. By the way, listen, and I'm assuming you watch me and you listen to me, and I appreciate the love. If you know anything about me, you know how much I've loved De'Aaron Fox all of these years. You know that, right?
Most definitely.
I love me some De'Aaron Fox.
Instead of other teams picking him up.
I love him. I love me some De'Aaron. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he should have been picked ahead of a Jason Tatum. Okay, but if I'm the Lakers and I decided I wanted a point guard, I picked Lonzo Ball because it was a business decision. If I'm the billionaire that Steve Ballmer is, or the late Paul Allen, God rest his soul, guess what? I pay no attention to that. But if I'm the bus as a family business and I'm concerned about box office appeal and making money, then I pick Lonzo Ball. And that is why Magic Johnson and Rob Pelinka had to pick Lonzo. De'Aaron Fox should have been the point guard that was chosen. We saw what he did to Lonzo in the NCAA tournament. We see what he's doing now. 17.9 points a game. Shoot 47% from the field. Nearly 38% from three-point range, averaging 7 assists. He's aggressive. He's a born leader. I love De'Aaron Fox. Love De'Aaron Fox. Had the pleasure of meeting him before he was drafted. And it's just let me give also Vlade Divac some love here, sir. Buddy Hield can shoot. In case y'all didn't know, Buddy Hield shooting 44% from three-point range. Did y'all know that? He's averaging 20 a game. Did y'all know that? I mean, Buddy Hield can shoot now. Out of Oklahoma, he can play. Willie Cauley-Stein always looking to dunk on somebody. And Bogdanovich can play. I like Sacramento. Sacramento, you know what? You know what, Ramsey? Sacramento and Brooklyn. I see why you calling, because you heard me talking about the Brooklyn Nets. You are right. Sacramento's in that same conversation. They're in that same conversation.
Yep, and like I said, they play each other Monday afternoon on Martin Luther King Day in Brooklyn.
In Brooklyn. You know what? I mean, I don't know where I'm going to be. I might have to go to that game. I like Sacramento, too. I mean, but I'm so proud of Brooklyn. I really am. And Sacramento, too, you're right. They're 2 games over 500. I mean, that game they had against Golden State less than 2 weeks ago, that was a fantastic basketball game. Buddy Hield and Steph Curry and those boys going at it, it was nice to watch. You're right. You're right, Ramsey. I can't dismiss that. Thank you for the call. Let's go to Alex. You're live with Stephen A. What's up, Alex? Talk to me.
What's up, Stephen A?
How are you?
I grew up in Pottstown for a long time. Pottstown, PA, you probably know of it.
Yes, I do.
What do the Eagles need, or what do they need to do to win another Super Bowl?
First of all, get healthy again. I mean, Darby and those guys were down. You had 10 injuries going into like week 15 on the defensive side of the ball. 4 was in your secondary. You had, when you went up against the Saints and stuff, you had guys straight off the street, the practice squad that was playing. So let's keep that into consideration and respect that plight that the Eagles dealt with, and still recognize the fact that they showed up and competed against the New Orleans Saints. They lost 20-14. They played their behinds off. And I got to give credit where credit is due. Okay, Avonte Maddox, I mean, that's a rookie. Cravon LeBlanc, Rasul Douglas, and these boys. Look, man, they had a lot stacked against them, and they showed up. And that was an entirely different defense that played against New Orleans weeks earlier. So I think they got to be healthy. And more importantly, Carson Wentz got to be healthy too, because they're going to lose Nick Foles.
One quick thing. What do you think about Jason Peters? Does he need to go with that big contract?
Probably. He did a good job. He did a good job in one-on-one coverage when he played. Listen, when he played against Chicago, and you look at what he did with Khalil Mack. But I'm going to tell you something. You got to take into consideration the money and what it'll cost you. But in the end, what it comes down to for me is just keeping most of the team intact. Because listen, if Carson Wentz is healthy, if the Eagles defense were fully healthy in this game, are you sure they would have been a 6th seed? Are you sure they wouldn't have won the division crown against Dallas? Are you sure they wouldn't have found themselves in a position where they could have been in the NFC Championship game this weekend? I think they could have.
I mean,
think about it. With the injuries, the Eagles could have still beaten the Rams if they had played them.
I think the Saints was the toughest challenge.
That's right.
You know, they look like the best team in the league that first quarter. I mean, I couldn't believe it. And I was cheering, thinking they were going to win, but
it happens.
We'll get them next year.
It happens. Appreciate the call, man. Thank you so much. Jamal, you're live with Stephen A. Talk to me, Jamal.
Hey, Stephen A., thanks for taking my call. I love your work.
Thank you, man.
I was calling about the DeMarcus Cousins debut, but you talked about college football, and I want to give a quick shout-out to my little cousin, Julius Davis, to be the incoming 2019 running back recruit. So shout out to him.
Shout out's not necessary. You could always call when he's playing, so he's even more relevant then. But go ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate it. But for DeMarcus Cousins, I'm trying to figure out, am I crazy for thinking this transition should be smooth? Because when this Warriors dynasty started, they had Andrew Bogut. And DeMarcus Cousins can do everything Andrew Bogut can do, but better.
Well, stop right there. Stop right there. That's not true. DeMarcus Cousins is elite offensively. He walks around averaging 28 and 12. We get that. He does not play above the rim, really. He's not a formidable defender. Andrew Bogut's thing was to defend, rebound, block shots, be a paint protector. That's not DeMarcus Cousins. DeMarcus Cousins is an all-star caliber center that beats the living hell out of you offensively. That's DeMarcus Cousins. Defensively, that's not something that's his signature.
Yeah, I meant offensively, like running the offense, passing, because I think he's horrible at pick-and-roll defense. But I just feel like people are going to give the Warriors an excuse if they don't win the championship and use DeMarcus Cousins as an excuse as that transition. But
no, they're not gonna use it as an excuse. You got to learn more about basketball, my brother, because if you look at the Golden State Warriors, nobody's gonna give them any excuses. Not when they got 4 All-Stars or at least 3 All-Stars on their team this year. Nobody would give them an excuse. You're wrong on that point. But I'll talk to you later. 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. When you're hiring, you don't want to waste time sorting through dozens of irrelevant resumes, do you? You want an efficient way to get to a short list of qualified candidates. That's why you need Indeed.com. Post a job in minutes, set up screening questions based on your job requirements, then zero in on qualified candidates using an intuitive online dashboard. Discover why 3 million businesses use Indeed for hiring. Post a job today at Indeed.com/hire. Search for greatness. Search Indeed. Brett Okamoto, MMA analyst extraordinaire. He's up next to preview this UFC fight card Saturday night. So stick around. Don't touch that dial. You're listening live to Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. Winter or summer, rain or shine, with the Peloton bike, it's always the perfect weather to sweat. And with up to 14 live rides a day and over 10,000 more on demand, nothing will get between you and your workout. Learn more about the Peloton bike at onepeloton.com or visit your local showroom. You can sit up there and say Dak Prescott didn't have the most stellar game. You can do that. You can point to Ezekiel Elliott rushing for just 47 yards and 20 carries. You can point to the coaching because Jason Garrett, in concert with Scott Linehan, ultimately studied their own calls. And the Los Angeles Rams knew exactly what the Cowboys were going to do and when they were going to do it. And as a result, that made them incredibly transparent, which closed the gaps for Ezekiel Elliott to run the football. And as a result, you got what you got. We could go that route. We could do that. We could do that. But here's what I would ask you to see. I would ask you to notice C.J. Anderson rushing for 123 yards and 23 carries. I would ask you to notice Todd Gurley rushing for 115 yards on 16 carries. I would ask you to notice that the two combined for 3 touchdowns. Anderson with 2, Gurley with 1. I would ask you to look at all of those things. And then I would ask you to say this. Tell me that the Dallas Cowboys didn't get punched in the face. That's what this came down to. We can slice it any way we want to. But the Dallas Cowboys got manhandled at the line of scrimmage. And Ndamukong Suh was manhandling the offensive line. No matter what way you slice it. And Whitworth and his crew on the offensive line for the Los Angeles Rams was manhandling the Dallas Cowboys defensive line. Jared Goff was sitting back there. He barely had to put in a day's work. The Los Angeles Rams rushed the football 48 times Saturday night and threw the ball 28 times. One article was comparing the 32-year-old Sean McVay, the youngest head coach in the NFL, to the old coach Chuck Knox from the 70s, because that's the strategy they reverted back to. We're going to run it right down Dallas's throat, and we're going to dare them to do something about it. That is what happened.
The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on The Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And you can always get in touch with the show through the 1-800-Flowers Twitter feed.
Saturday, January 19th, the UFC debuts on ESPN Plus with a true super fight. Champion versus champion. Bantamweight title holder TJ Dillashaw drops to flyweight to face the king of the 125-pound division, Henry Cejudo. Live on ESPN Plus at 10 Eastern. Coverage of the prelim starts on ESPN at 8 p.m. Eastern. Start your free trial of ESPN Plus today. Download the ESPN app to get the best of UFC on ESPN Plus. An honor and a privilege to have my next guest. I've seen him at a couple of fights. I happen to be familiar with his work for years. He does an outstanding job covering the MMA as an analyst, as a host, and beyond. I'm talking about the one and the only Brett Okamoto. He's on the line with yours truly right now. Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio. Brett, good afternoon. How are you, buddy? How's everything?
What's up, Stephen A? Lovely to talk to you, man. Everything's good. How are you?
Same here, man. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. Let's get right to it. This fight card Saturday night. Ariel Helwani came on the First Take this morning and was talking about how big this fight is between Dillashaw and Cejudo because you're basically trying to save the flyweight division. He said this could be the most, arguably one of the most significant events in UFC history. To that you say what, sir?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there's a lot of truth in that storyline. I also think, Stephen A., if I'm being quite honest, that it's a little bit blown out of proportion because I believe that within a year of today, whether Henry Cejudo goes out and wipes the floor with TJ Dillashaw or he loses that fight, that we won't be talking about the flyweight division because I don't think the UFC wants to be in the business of 125-pound fighters, right or wrong. I think that they came to the conclusion that the fan base out there, they don't want to see the little guys. I would argue with that. I think that they should keep it around, but I think that decision has already been made. So while I do agree with Ariel, he's not lying to you. I think that the short-term future of the flyweight division is on the line on Saturday. I don't think long-term anything that Henry Cejudo does is going to make any difference. What will make a difference for Henry Cejudo is for himself. He's fighting for himself. He's fighting for his contract status. He's fighting for his ability to maybe get a title shot at 135 and to just be a bigger star in this sport. So there's a lot on the line for Henry Cejudo. The flyweights, I think they're going away either way.
I'll tell you something else, too, based on, listen, you know more than me, but when I think about Dillashaw and what they're saying about him, this is a guy that I'm told walks around at 150, 155. He fights at 135 in the bantamweight division. He's talking about moving up to 145 later on, but right now, here he is about to fight at 125. How wise is it for him to literally go down to 125?
Well, I think his hand is kind of played because here's the deal with TJ Dillashaw. I believe that this guy has for years already been one of the most well-rounded, most skilled guys I can say in the entire sport, but he hasn't really gotten the credit for it. And to be honest with you, I think the UFC dropped the ball a little bit on TJ Dillashaw. He was a champion. He lost his belt in a very, very close fight against Dominic Cruz. It's one of those fights, Stephen A., that I couldn't tell you who won the fight. I sat there and watched it in person, 5 rounds. It was so close, I couldn't tell you who won. But they didn't give TJ Dillashaw an immediate rematch. He had to sit around and take other fights for 2 years, and he was always mad about that. He felt like, I'm the best fighter in the world. I just don't have the belt that goes along with it. So I think now that the belt is in his possession again, he's looking around for big fights. And right now, a big fight is doing something like dropping to 125 pounds because we're all talking about it. It adds a whole new layer to a title fight. And those are the types of things. They are challenges and they are risks, but he's making up for lost time because he wants to leave a legacy, and he knows the only way to do it is to take on those types of things.
But then based on what you were talking about, why not move up to do that as opposed to move down?
He plans to move up. That's the thing. He wants to do both. He wants to move up and move down. And I can tell you right now, it's easier to move down at this point in his career and then look about moving up. You don't want to do it in the opposite direction. You don't want to go up and then have to cut all that weight and come back to 125. He wants to get 125 out of the way, and then he wants to put his eyes on Max Holloway at 145 pounds, which is insane because I can tell you right now, Max Holloway just naturally probably weighs 30 pounds more than TJ Dillashaw. That is the weight discrepancy we'd be talking about if Dillashaw were to eventually move up.
Brett Okamoto right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. When I look at, Henry, I'm thinking along this lines, Brett. I watched Dillashaw beat this kid Garbrandt not once but twice. And I look at Garbrandt in his career, and he's been pretty impressive. I think. Do you see similarities between Garbrandt in terms of style, Garbrandt and Henry Cejudo?
What I would say, what is similar about them is these two guys throw hard, and they got great hand speed. And T.J. Dillashaw is a guy who does take risks. That's what makes him one of the most entertaining guys in this sport, is that he's doing a lot of stuff with his hands down. He's putting his face out a little bit, almost like a Lomachenko, daring a guy to hit him, and he'll take risks. He'll switch stances in the middle of an exchange, and all of that is risky. It can be very effective, but it's risky. And one thing that Cody Garbrandt, and this is the reason why, quite frankly, I picked Cody Garbrandt to beat T.J. Dillashaw the first time they fought, because I thought that would get T.J. Dillashaw in trouble. I thought Cody Garbrandt had the hand speed and the power to clip him on the chin and put him away. And if you remember that first fight, Cody Garbrandt did knock down T.J. Dillashaw in the first round, but then he came back to win it in the second. I think Henry has the same capability. He doesn't move around a whole lot. If we're talking just basic skill for skill in a mixed martial arts contest, I think TJ is the more skilled guy. But what Henry does is he plants his feet in the pocket, and when TJ comes and tries to do that little fancy stuff that he does, Henry Cejudo is going to try to counter a big-time right hand, and he does have the power to knock him out.
We're going to break out Okamoto right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. There's 3 fights on ESPN before the three fights on the main event goes to ESPN Plus Saturday night. You got Carl Roberson versus Glover Teixeira. You've got Rachel Ostovich, who's 4-4, and we know something about her story going against Paige Van Zandt, and obviously Dustin Ortiz going against Joseph Benavidez. Which fight of the 3 interests you along those 3 lines, along the lines of those 3 fights? Which ones do you find most compelling?
Well, I'll tell you what, if I could almost deviate from your question, I hope that's okay, sure. But I think there's another fight on the card.
Sure.
People got to watch Donald Cerrone. People have to watch Cowboy Cerrone fight Alexander Hernandez. He's actually on the ESPN linear portion of the card, so if you switch on to television, go and watch Cowboy Cerrone fight. If you've never seen him fight, this is the guy with the most wins in UFC history. He has 21 wins. He just did that. He passed George St. Pierre, Michael Bisping on the all-time record list. He's going back down to 155 pounds for the first time in 3 years, and what he wants to do is he wants to win this fight against a young kid. Hernandez is 9 years younger than him.
Okay.
And Cerrone, I believe, wants to call out Conor McGregor. That is the fight that he wants. I'm not sure if he'll get that, but if you like Conor McGregor call-outs and you like entertaining fighters, Cowboy will give that to you on Saturday.
Yeah, but why should – let me stick with you right there for a second, Brett. Why should we be interested in seeing Conor against anybody outside of Nurmagomedov after the beatdown he took against Nurmagomedov?
Well, exactly what you just said. I don't want to see that fight again right away. It was not close. It was one-sided. There's a lot of good names at 155 pounds in a lightweight division. There are other people that I would want to see Khabib Nurmagomedov fight. Look, Khabib for years, when Conor was holding the belt hostage and he was going away and he was doing boxing, Khabib sat at press conferences and he said, when I win the title, I ain't doing that. I am going to be the type of champion that takes on all comers. I'm going to get this sport back to the sport. I'm going to get it away from the theatrics. And so far, he's been a liar on that. You know, he jumped over the cage. He's facing the suspension. He's talking about boxing Floyd Mayweather. But as a fight fan, I'm telling you, Stephen A., that is not the fight that we need to see next. It's not Conor McGregor and Khabib Nurmagomedov. We can see it someday down the road, but Conor has other fights to take on. He could fight a Max Holloway. He could fight a Donald Cowboy Cerrone. He could fight a Dustin Poirier. And Khabib has other takers, other title contenders at a lightweight that he needs to address.
Let me ask you this question before I let you get on out of here, because Conor McGregor, I mean, are we at a stage right now where you think there's potential there that Conor McGregor may just be finished? I'm talking about as a champion, as one of the elite fighters in the game, simply not just because of the loss to Nurmagomedov, but because of all that money he got fighting Floyd Money Mayweather, the fact that he's a new dad and et cetera. You got all of that going on. It's one of those situations where, okay, maybe the lion in him isn't there any longer. Brett, have you ever considered that at all?
Of course. I consider it all the time. I think it's probably likely. And here's the most optimistic view I can give you on that. I think that him as this champion that gets in there and is a champion from the traditional sense where he holds the belt and he's fighting just the next guy in line, that's never going to happen. We're never going to see that in Conor McGregor's career. But what I do hope is that he's able to find those particular fights, you know, whether it's a trilogy with Nate Diaz, whether it's a rematch with Khabib Nurmagomedov, whether it's fighting a guy like Cowboy Cerrone, who has the most wins in UFC history, that competitor in him, just the natural competitor that turned him into who he was initially, still comes out when he gets in fight camp. You know, that he can go off and he can be the billionaire, the millionaire, whatever he wants to do in between fights, but still that piece of him that made him so special in the beginning of his career, I hope it still exists enough that when he signs his name on a dotted line and he gets into a fight camp, we see a good version of him. I think that can happen. I hope it will happen.
Hey, before I let you get on out of here, Greg Hardy, football player with a checkered past, obviously involving domestic violence and beyond in his career with the Dallas Cowboys, Carolina Panthers. Before that, he's a UFC fighter now, and he's undefeated 3-0. Is this somebody that has the potential to make significant noise in the UFC, or has there just been suspect competition thus far in his first 3 fights of his UFC career?
Both. Both. He absolutely has the athletic ability and the confidence. I mean, the guy looks like he's been in there more than 3 times. When I watch him, he just his composure and just the way he moves and the way he stands in the pocket and doesn't look like he cares about getting hit. This is a guy who just naturally is very, very good at this. And I don't think that should surprise many people. However, there is no doubt at all that he is being rushed. He is being completely rushed because the UFC wants to put him in front of eyeballs. Whether that's right or wrong, we could get into another conversation about that. Mm-hmm. But in this sport, you don't pick it up that fast, Stephen A. You don't go from making a professional debut with very little experience last year, and then all of a sudden you're fighting in a UFC co-main event. It doesn't happen that quickly. I'm not saying he's going to get beat by this guy that he's fighting, because this guy he's fighting on Saturday has not really proven himself either. But if this is the path, if this is the trajectory of Greg Hardy, this is leading to failure in the near future. So it just depends on how the UFC match makes it.
Well, listen, I'll be there Saturday night. Obviously, I'll be contributing for the network to the coverage, but I am certainly no Brett Okamoto or Ariel Helwani, to be quite honest with you. I appreciate the knowledge both of y'all have given me this morning and this afternoon. Thank you so much, buddy, and I'll see you Saturday night.
Sounds good, man. Looking forward to it.
All right, buddy. The one and only Brett Okamoto, MMA analyst extraordinaire, right here with Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News. These guys are special at what they do. They know this sport inside and out. Honored and privileged to talk to them and learn from somebody like Brett as well. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. We're talking about the UFC debuting on ESPN. The UFC on ESPN era begins Saturday night with the flyweight title fight. TJ Dillashaw moves down from bantamweight to flyweight to fight Henry Cejudo for the flyweight title. Brooklyn, Barclays Center, UFC. Check it out Saturday night. 888-SAY-ESPN. Back with your calls and more to end out the show in a minute. You're listening live to Stephen A., ESPN Radio. By the way, you know what never goes out of style? Surprising a special friend or loved one with 24 multicolored roses for $29.99 from 1-800-Flowers.com. To order, go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN. More of your calls in a minute. You're listening live to Stephen A., ESPN Radio, ESPN News.
Need game tickets? Find your seats at Vivid Seats.
I'm going to say something, Stephen A., and, it's kind of off the subject. I hope you let me do it for a second.
Sure, absolutely.
Many people are pointing to the lack of minority head coaching hires.
I would be at the front of the line with that. I'd be at the front of the line.
And so many people want to blame it on race and blatant racism. Here's what I'll say about it, and I tweeted about it. Mm-hmm. This is so historic, right? Because now they're putting it on, they want to hire the quarterback guy or the guy that works with quarterback. How many black quarterback coaches are there in the league?
I have no idea.
That's what I'm saying. How many black offensive line coaches or minority coaches? And so what's happening is, if this is going to be the pipeline to head coaching, if being an offensive coordinator, being a quarterback guy is going to be that pipeline, how are we, the Rooney Rule might as well not even be in effect, because we're not getting those guys even hired on the lower level offensively.
So you agree with me in terms of
I 100% agree with you. And I think I also think it's a deeper conversation than just head coaches. Right?
Well, take it there, Ryan. You take it there. I'm listening.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
So you look at, let's go through historically, right? So if we're going to hire the quarterback guy, historically, it was always questioned, could African Americans or could minorities play the quarterback position based on intelligence, right? And so now you don't have that direct correlation between those guys becoming quarterback coaches, right? So they don't get to be offensive coordinators. They never get to be considered offensive geniuses. And so now when this coaching cycle comes around, that's all they're looking for. LaFleur, you can have the 27th ranked offense, right? With Marcus Mariota in Tennessee.
That's right.
And get a head coaching job.
Right.
How?
Kingsbury. You
can lose your job at Texas Tech.
At Texas Tech, get a job at USC. Don't even have a moment to go to Roscoe's for chicken and waffles and get a NFL head coaching job.
And so to me, I think we have to take a deeper look. The NFL has to take a deeper look into the hiring of minority coaches, not just at the head coaching level, but throughout the building. Because what you see what's happening is, right, you're hired to coach wide receivers. You hired to coach defensive backs. You hired to coach linebackers. One, because you play those positions. Two, because the people in the room, they want you to be able to deal with them.
The Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and you can always get in touch with the show through the 1-800-Flowers Twitter feed.
I lost my sound. If you missed any of today's show, don't worry. You can listen to the podcast on your schedule, on demand in the Stephen A. Podcast feed. Brought to you by the new Capital One Saver Card. Earn 4% cash back on dining and entertainment, 2% at grocery stores, and 1% on all other purchases. Hey! What's in your wallet? Back to the phone we go real quick. Christian, you're live with Stephen A. Real quick, Christian, go.
Yo, what's going on, man? Thanks for having me.
All right, go ahead, buddy. You only got 30 seconds. Go.
Oh, wait, okay. Quick point. Denver calling from Denver, but I'm from Baltimore. I got to give a shout-out to the Fuller brothers right now making moves in the NFL. First, Kyle with the Bears. Just absolutely had a stellar season, going to the Pro Bowl. I know the Bears ain't going far this year.
All right. That's you go. All right, that's what you wanted to waste your 30 seconds on?
No, I want to talk about Kendall, though. Kendall, his younger brother with the Chiefs, is going to make noise on this game this weekend against the Patriots. He's going to pick off Tom Brady. They're going to go to the Super Bowl.
I got you. We'll see. I hope you're right. I hope it's Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl instead of the New England Patriots. I'm tired of seeing Tom Brady and those boys, but I'm not underestimating them. Not anymore. The Patriots are still for real. They're still the Patriots. It's going to be real interesting to see. Chiefs, Patriots, Saints, Rams. We'll be talking about that tomorrow and Friday. I can tell you that. Until then, peace and love, everybody.